Hey guys, what's up? I figured we would talk a little bit more about transportation, but not of the car variety. Specifically how we got from country to country, and if any of what we did might help you in planning any trips that you might want to take. So, obviously, we took trains the majority of the time, which Rail Pass is fabulous to get. You do not want to just pay for individual train trips, and they have so many different rail passes. You can go to like Rail Europe or Eurail. I don't know what much of the difference is. Like they do offer slightly different passes, those two sites do. But I guess just whichever one has the pass that you want will be the one that you get your pass from. I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. It just depends on what the nature of your trip is. So there are like regional passes, there are single country passes, there are like, you can get a dual country pass where it like covers, Germany, Poland, or Germany, Czech Republic, or, like where you can travel as much as you want for the days that you chose, the number of days that you chose within those two countries. Or 3 or whatever. There's just so many different ones. You just have to explore and look, and there's different number of days that you can get your pass for. I think the least number of days is like 3. I don't think you can get any less than 3 days on a rail pass, and I think the most is like 21 days, and a rail day is a 24-hour period. So if you get your pass stamped with a date on it, like when you go to use it, you have 24 hours to take as many train rides as you want with whatever your pass covers, obviously. You don't have to be on the train all day if you don't want to. I mean, if you just want a day of like, I'm going to use this rail day, I'm going to be on the train all day. That's kind of silly, but if you really want to, go for it. But there's just so many different types of passes for whatever your group is, whatever your trip is going to be, whatever. So just explore it a little bit on a couple of those sites and see, what would work for you. We got a 10-day, I think it was like a flexi pass or something. So it was supposed to cover like all of the like mainland European Union countries, which what was kind of lame is at that time, this was 2006, Czech Republic was not yet officially on that list of what was covered on our rail pass, and we were going there, and so it was like right in the middle of the trip, and I guess I didn't really realize it. We actually got caught like on the train where they were like, oh, your rail passes won't work. So we had to buy a ticket on the train. We were already on the train. We were like at the border or something. It was kind of weird. I'll tell you about it later. I'll tell you about it when I talk about going from Vienna to Prague. But all in all, the train was fantastic. And with your rail pass, you can get discounts on other things. There are tourist buses, or just like local buses that will take you places, or kind of like Greyhound style, like we have the Greyhound buses here in the US. They have bus systems, I think Eurostar, I don't remember what all they're called. There's a bunch of different bus companies that will take you from country to country as well, which sometimes that's like the best way to get there if you're going to like a really small little town where you can't just take the train directly there, or maybe the train doesn't actually go there. Maybe there are only buses, and that happens a lot, like especially in some of the alpine towns in the Alps, and some of just the teeny tiny little towns. Sometimes you kind of need to take a bus. They don't have a train station because they're too little. So there's that as well, and just Googling all of this. I have a lot of information, so you can ask me, but in case I don't, I'll Google it for you, or I'll just give you some ideas of what to Google if that's what you need. Ferry rides are another option. Sometimes that's the way you have to get there, because obviously there aren't trains that go across the water. There's the channel that goes under the water, but it's not on top of the water. And you can actually, I'm pretty sure you can take a ferry from like France or Belgium or the Netherlands over to England if you want to, but the channel is just like a really good option. The only ferry we took was from Wales to Ireland. It was like 2-hour jet boat ferry or something. It was like super fast ferry. Thank goodness, because it was a ridiculous ferry ride. All of the misbehaved children that were in Europe were all on this ferry ride. Like, we saw really well-behaved children the majority of our trip, and then the possessed evil children were all on this ferry ride. And there was like some weird puppet show that was supposed to subdue them somehow, and it had like weird techno music with it, and I don't even know what was going on. It didn't help. It just got them more riled up, and they were like eating candy, and it was just, they were crazy children, like possessed evil children. But that was the only ferry ride we took. We opted to take a plane from Rome to Athens instead of a ferry ride because the plane was only 2 hours long and the ferry was 19 hours. So that saved us a whole bunch of time. And the plane ticket, I think, was only like 10 or 15 bucks more than the ferry ticket because we couldn't just use our rail pass for the ferry because the rail pass was for the train, not a boat. So anyway, it was a good idea for us to take a plane. And we took a couple more intercontinental flights because sometimes that is what you need to do to save time. It's not always the most money-saving thing, but if you only have like a certain amount of time and you need to get from point A to point B and the best way to get there is by plane, then that's what you do. And that's what we did. Normally I don't condone hopping around. It baffles my mind, like it just baffles me when people are like, oh, I went to Europe and we went to Scotland and Italy and Poland, and I'm like, why didn't you pick countries that were close to each other? And they're like, yeah, we only got to spend like a day and a half in each of them because we were traveling the rest of the time, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would you pay for a plane ticket to go over to Europe and then like pay for all these other plane tickets and like make your trip price just jack up through the ceiling and like, oh, it was so expensive, we saved for like 5 years, and then you only get to go to like, you only get to spend like 2 days in each of these places. That's lame. That's really lame. So pick countries that are kind of close together and you won't have to waste your time just on a train or in a plane, you know, or on a ferry, whatever. Just pick things that are kind of close together. And we did, for the most part. We just saw a lot of them in the period of time that we were there. We were there for 7.5 weeks, and we saw like 13, 14 countries. I don't really count Wales because we just kind of went through it. But, you know, if we had stretched out and like just picked like half the amount, we would have been able to spend more time in some of those places. So we weren't hopping around a bunch, with the exception of going from Greece up to Hungary, because we didn't have time to see the things in between, and that wasn't the priority for that. And then Germany up to Estonia. And Estonia was tacked on part of the way through my planning due to the temper tantrum that Dodger and my brother threw, because I said, well, we're not going to Estonia because it's not exactly on the way to anything. And they said, no, we need to go because you and Jared have been and you've told us all about it and we want to go to Estonia and how could we not go, blah, blah, blah. So we went to Estonia, even though it was not on the way to anything. I am so glad we went, though, of course, because I really wanted to go back, and I got a really good deal on a ticket. I was so proud of myself. Round trip ticket, $80 per person. You can't even fly from Portland to Seattle for less than $100. So I was pretty excited. So anyway, yeah. But you guys can find your own plane rides. I don't know. Just try not to hop around. That's the moral of the story. But all in all, I think I did a pretty good job. Rail pass, essential. Take the train whenever possible, and try to use the discounts that it gives you. You know, using it on bus rides or whatever. And then ferries if you need to, but just know ferry is not a cruise ship, so if that helps you at all. And go look at timetables for trains, because a lot of people are like, yeah, we got there and we didn't know that there was only like 2 trains per day that go to this one city, and so we didn't get to go. And I was like, well, why didn't you look at the timetable before and arrange to get there to be able to catch this next train or whatever? Just make it work with the timetables. And I have actually in my geeky file folder box, yes, I have a file folder box, and it's got maps and brochures, and it's wonderful, and I love how nerdy I am. I love my nerdy file folder box, but I've got like a notebook that has all of these websites that are like the different countries' actual web address for their rail system. So like, you know, Germany's rail system, France, whatever. I have pretty much all of them, I think, or most of them. Maybe I don't have Iceland. So if you want to look at a timetable, a lot of times that's the best way to go. So anyway, I'm sorry this video wasn't filled with like crazy magical stories of like crazy people that don't wear clothes, or, you know, people that stalk us or whatever. But, you know, the Greece video is next. Greece videos, possibly. I might split up into 2. And there will be stories, I promise. There will be stories in that one, and crazy people. and shenanigans. But this one was just information for y'all, so hopefully it was okay, and I'll talk to you later.